Hello.
Hey, everybody. I will give the milling
afternoon.
a couple of seconds to calm down before we get started.
We got the afternoon crowd. Hey, everyone.
So, now that we've gotten calmed down, I think we can start by introducing ourselves. I'll go first. My name's Brett Puffenbarger. Most of you probably know me as that guy that talks a lot of shit on LinkedIn. I'm a fractional CMO, CRO type guy. I do mostly B2B marketing in cannabis. I'm very interested in a lot of aspects of social media marketing, and its impact on how we talk about cannabis, which is why I am beyond excited to sit down with this lovely woman and have a nice long chat, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alianiello. I am head of cannabis at X. I sit on the U.S. sales and partnerships team. However, the work that I do supports the cannabis industry at large. It's been an honor to come in here. About a year and a half ago was the first Benzinga conference that we sat on, and it's just the best event for having an ear to the ground and what's happening in the industry. And it's really, you've all really helped inform me in the work that we do to help support the industry as a whole. So thank you.
So today we're going to have a little bit of a guided fireside chat. I'm going to set the stage with a couple of pieces of information or a couple of talking points that most of us experience every day out in the land of social media. And then Alexa here is going to give a little bit of her own perspective, a little bit of X's perspective, a little bit of just general chit chat back and forth. We're going to try to keep it fairly informal, slightly guided, and hopefully informational for all of you. So without further ado, the first topic we're going to kind of jump into is the election. I know half of you just decided you wanted to leave the room. The other half got really excited. Let's start with a couple of facts. This is the first general election for a president where both major candidates have given some level of endorsement to cannabis. We've also seen all of the news around Schedule 3, rescheduling, descheduling, all of those conversations. We've seen the rise or creation of the intoxicating hemp market out of what we all thought was a loophole. We've seen ridiculous amounts of conversation around safe and safer, and a pretty large host of other topics that take the glacial, titanic, slow movement of the federal government and put cannabis square in the middle of the election. So I guess the very first thing we can talk about there is, where do you see X playing a role in that as far as cannabis in the election goes?
Yeah, so X's vision is to help bring civilization forward through information sharing and through dialogue. And we really aim to be the most reliable and trusted source of information. So we have a ton of cross-functional efforts within the company to really preserve the integrity of information that's flowing, everything from platform-sourced moderation tools to really just, again, allow for that free expression of information. And we also have community sourced. So for example, we have community notes where we allow a subset of our user base to actually provide evidentiary support if there is information that is non-factual, and just really surface that to the general public. So it's a huge part of our responsibility to our user base, but I would say the biggest role that we play is just as the platform for that public discourse. We are a safe space for conversation around cannabis, whether it has to do with the legal landscape and what's happening in the market, whether it has to do with brands and products, or whether it has to do with social justice issues. We are the space where people are coming for that accurate source of information and to be able to engage in that dialogue.
So taking that a little bit further, right, we've seen Donald Trump say Elon Musk saved free speech by buying Twitter and becoming X. We've seen some of those things. I think something we don't often talk about when we talk about those things, right? We talk about free speech in these very scary ways right now, right? In the very bombastic ways that get thrown around in the world. But what we don't talk about is free speech is something as simple as a social media company allowing cannabis conversations. And something that I think Twitter to now X has always done historically to today is create community, right? People talk about it, it's MMA X or cannabis X or this. Do you see the aspects of allowing cannabis onto the platform in line with that keeping of free speech, right? You kind of started down that path. Can you go a little further down that path?
Yeah, so what really brought me to this space and to this conference actually about a year and a half ago was some of the work that we've done on monetization integrity. What that means is, how do we create groundbreaking advertising policy reform that actually allows businesses to come onto the platform to market, to bring their brands and their products forward and connect with hundreds of millions of people in the US especially, but also in other markets. And so that was where it started for me, but we have long since protected the conversation. It really is the only platform, social platform, and even mainstream technology platform where you can talk about cannabis openly. You can say weed. You can showcase images of products. You can talk about everything that's going on in the industry, in the legal landscape, and in terms of social justice, right? Anything that's happening. So I think for us, we were able to kind of marry those two objectives of how do we help businesses create outcomes to help grow this industry and also protect the conversation at the same time. And I think it goes hand in hand, because when we are allowing brands to advertise and market and be front and center and promote to an extended user base, we're actually helping normalize these products. We're showing them to people that wouldn't normally see them and who might not be able to connect with what cannabis really is and the work that all of you have done in creating these products in the space. And also be able to share information about what's happening in the financial markets and really anything related to and tangential to this category. So we have a responsibility to protect that information flow, but we also really focus on how do we help businesses actually generate outcome. And we've seen hundreds of brands come to the platform in the past year and a half and activate and really help drive these outcomes forward, whether it's, hey, we really want to build brand awareness and we want to bring our brands front and center, to we want to drive people to our website, to we want to drive actual sales and really drive return on the investment that we're making on the platform so we can then reinvest it back into our businesses. And I've had tons of brands come to me, especially in the past week, and say, look, I heard you're speaking on this panel, like, make sure you bring up that you're actually driving results for us. Like, we have many multi-state operators to direct-to-consumer brands to smaller operators who are they're able to use our platform to connect with new audiences and to really grow and scale their businesses and make an impact. So that's something we're really proud of doing over the past year.
So let's go down that path a little bit. So if brands are able to make an impact, could you give a couple of use cases or some examples? Not necessarily naming names, right? I'm not saying like dime anybody out, but I'm saying could you kind of walk people through a few ways people have jumped on the platform and began using it successfully?
Yeah, absolutely. So with regard to X, so we have a few ways that you can best leverage the platform as a brand. Organically, obviously, you can come on and again, be able to talk about cannabis, showcase your brand, and kind of build an audience organically through the content that you're putting out. And be able to take some of the strategies that you might have across other platforms, whether it's advertising platforms or events that you're doing, and just be able to bring that into this digital space. And then we also have advertising tools. We have targeted ad placements that allow you to basically employ a full funnel advertising strategy. Again, if you think about the marketing funnel, from the top of funnel, brand awareness, to maybe consideration, driving people to your site, to driving that sale, and then re-engagement from there. So lots of brands have used, for example, extended their loyalty offerings across the platform and have been able to connect with their existing customers and also prospect net new customers.
Amazing. So let's go a step kind of back toward what we were going down. We were talking a little bit about free speech and kind of working it into, it's amazing that a social media platform allows cannabis, right? Like just point blank, we had LinkedIn for a long time and it's basically a B2B platform and that's basically all it ever will be. And then nothing, to the point that you see on those other guys, right? The big Z and their world. People have to use like OUID leaf and some of those, right? We've all seen that, right? I think it's supposed to be weed, like the French pronunciation. I don't know really, whatever. So we don't have to do that on X anymore. That's a huge step. Being able to advertise is a huge step, I think, in the right direction. Do you have any tips and tricks in differentiating between those two? Is it organic growth? Is it ad growth? A little bit of both? Do you think it takes more work? And is it, we'll just leave it there for now, and then I'll probably have another follow-up.
Yeah, well, I think the point is that like the platform welcomes everyone, regardless of how you're affiliated with this industry, whether you're an individual thought leader or whether you're a brand or a business, whether you're an investor, a regulator. Pretty much everyone has an opportunity to take advantage of the platform. I would say from a business perspective, it is a very scalable and endemic audience that we have on X around cannabis. We have over 40 million total posts a year that happen about cannabis. We have hundreds of millions of American monthly active users that, it pretty much mirrors the general population in terms of distribution of who's interested in cannabis. They over-index on being a consumer. And so there is a real opportunity to reach people here and, again, drive the outcomes that you're looking for. I would say it is a platform that requires a little bit of thought and strategy and investment. And so when you're thinking about driving those outcomes, there definitely are best practices to consider. Like, it might take a little bit of, gas in order for you to really start the engines of seeing those results. So definitely considering that when you're looking at it from a marketing perspective. But we have myself and my team, there's always, human beings that you can talk to be able to help advise on how to best use the platform. So we really do pride ourselves on being welcome to all businesses. We have different models of how to actually activate on platform, but I would say pretty much anyone is welcome.
I love that. You see kind of in the news, people want to paint it like there's only one type of audience there, and I don't think that's true in reality, right? There's all kinds of different spaces on there that are incredibly cannabis friendly. 40 million posts seems like a lot, like a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, we've done a bunch of research, just especially to peel back the curtain a little bit in terms of how we got here. Like, we've kind of done this work hinging on a lot of the work that we've done with other emerging categories. For example, sports betting and gambling, crypto and DeFi, political, these categories that are pretty regulated from an advertising perspective, which we actually had a playbook. And so when the company was acquired back in late 2022, I had been a part of the cannabis community, and it made sense for us to explore this as an area of opportunity. Elon's guiding philosophy around our monetization integrity is, if it's legal, we sell it. So we figure out a way to make it work, also in adherence with our responsibility to the safety of our user base. So our advertising policy isn't just a free-for-all. There are certain states, certain products, and certain demos that are able to be targeted and showcased. So for example, we do require 21 plus. There are certain you have to geofence to certain targetable markets based on the policies within those markets. I mean, at the state level. So, but we're always iterating that policy. And so it's usually a fast follow to anything that's happening in the regulatory landscape. A good example of that is Maryland, right? Like, and other states that have become adult use. Like, we will fast follow in the work that my team has done with our policy team to really make sure that that market is more accessible from an advertising perspective. So to me, there's a commitment from me and from our team to really be able to follow the lead of what's happening in the legal landscape with our advertising policies and also with just what we allow on platform. And so right now, pretty much anything goes from an organic perspective, unless it's false. You can post it, you can talk about it, you can share it, and you can engage with it.
So, as a marketer, I've used social media for a variety of ways. And as someone who came from the corporate world, a million years ago in cannabis years, I expected to find what I found in the regular world when I got to cannabis, and I was sorely mistaken. I think half of the people here who jumped from outside of other industries, right? I came from Harley Davidson into cannabis. We didn't find what we were looking for, and I guess what I'm trying to get at here is I'm curious if you're seeing interest from specific groups within cannabis? So like, are the legacy operators really excited that they have a channel? Are the corporate transplants like me excited that they have something they're used to from another industry? Do you have a general sense of how that kind of looks, or is it a mix, or is there, how does that look?
I think the general consensus is just we want to be able to talk about cannabis and engage in public discourse, and we want to grow our businesses, and we want to grow them in a sustainable and profitable way. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't really sure how this was all going to go about a year and a half ago, but I was sitting with Brandon from Cheech and Chong a little bit earlier today, and we were reflecting and saying, wow, like this really worked. Like we really have been able to help make an impact. And so I think it really depends on each business's objective. Maybe multi-state operators might be a little bit more focused on driving top of funnel, especially leading into potential new market development. Maybe some smaller operators, there might be some more budget constraints from a marketing perspective, especially until there's some more regulatory shifts. So we might be more focused on lower funnel objectives like driving sales and profitable sales and customer acquisition. So I think what we've learned is just that we have all of the products and all of the tools to be able to really move the needle for different objectives. And so part of the work that we've been doing is just being able to translate the needs of the market back to both not just our policy, but to our products so that we can really help grow the category overall. Because if that's not happening, like I'm not really doing my job.
All right, let's jump into a little bit of the theoretical. So X accepting cannabis advertisements is huge, right? They're one of the larger social media platforms. Do you think this puts pressure on the others to catch up? Do you think they're feeling that? Do you think they're looking at that and going, I'm missing money? Are they missing customers? Do you think that's happening? Or are they going, let them figure it out and we'll decide later?
So I've been in touch with some other platforms, have communicated with them just to better understand the landscape and what's possible. And I've also obviously spoken with our partners who have been really forthcoming with what's possible. And I think we're definitely the most liberal and the most welcoming platform, both to the conversation and to advertising. I think there have been some slight shifts from other platforms, but we really are in this advantageous situation of being able to iterate these policies for underserved categories in ways that companies that are responsible to shareholders and have other responsibilities just aren't going to do right now, at least until big sweeping regulatory changes are made. And so again, like we're sort of, I don't want to say like we have a head start, but we at least have the pipelines so that when those changes do happen and there are shifts in the accessibility of marketing budget, for example, that like we're here to support that and we know that it works. So yeah, we're excited to kind of be pioneers in this space, and we should only hope that, it's good for all of us. It's good for the category at large when any platform makes changes and iterations to allow for any sort of activity. But I do think that we are in a pretty fortuitous position, and so that's why we were able to make these changes in the past couple of years.
So I, for one, think that we've gone through a lot in cannabis over the last few years, right? There's been a lot of ups and downs and all overs, and the last couple of years in particular, I think for a lot of people, I'm looking at familiar faces right now that I know have felt this, have been really rough on the industry. Ancillary, doesn't matter what state, any of that, it's been rough. I actually feel hopeful for once. Like I'm starting to kind of feel good, despite all the crazy stuff happening in the world, right? Like despite all of the conflict out there, when it comes to cannabis and cannabis alone, I feel pretty hopeful. And honestly, I think you guys showing up, right? Like X showing up in a meaningful way and saying like, yeah, we'll take you, is probably one of the largest buckets in that, like, filling up of my bucket of hope. So I guess for me, I'm not going to grill you anymore. I'm just going to say thank you and thank the platform for being there for us. And they're going to kick us off in a few seconds. So you got any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I do actually. Thank you for being here, for challenging me, and for helping inspire the conversation. I think the biggest thing that I hope everyone takes away from today is just that this is a platform where the conversation is welcome. And so as things are happening, this X is where those things are going to be brought forward. And so it's where we can actually help get this information in front of the public at large, whether it's medical benefits of cannabis, products, brands, whether it's social justice and, criminal justice reform issues. Anything that's happening in the industry can be spoken about and is spoken about here. We're already moving the needle in terms of shifting perception and really normalizing this. And so keep an eye out. Come use the platform, especially leading into this election. It's really a hot place for the public dialogue, and I look forward to continuing to support the industry. So thank you for having me.